Guys, welcome back to the Johnny and Sergio show. We have the most exciting guest I think we could possibly have on this podcast, which is Mr. Verne Harnish, the founder of the Entrepreneurs Organization, which I believe to be the largest peer-to-peer entrepreneur network, bigger than anyone else as far as members go, at least. And also the author of, in my opinion, the best book on business, changed the game for Sergio and I, Scaling Up. So welcome to the podcast, Verne.
Good. Well, you could have Taylor Swift on, and that would be much more epic. But anyway, glad to be here for sure.
For us,
for me, this is more exciting than Taylor Swift.
way more exciting. So context, Vern, you don't know this, but you actually changed our life in a big way. So we came through the whole EO pipeline back when we were college students. So we went through GSEA, and we went through GSEA, and we ended up getting second place, which I think is bullshit, to be quite honest. I think we should have won. We were the only company that was making money in this competition, but they decided to give us an even better reward for second place, and they gave us a free scholarship to EO Accelerator. And even though we weren't at the threshold of 250,000 yet. And so when we got into EO Accelerator in 2019, they gave us this book. And we still use this book to this day, even for Home Service Academy, and eventually went through Accelerator and ended up building a Home Service Academy. We'll do around $5 million this year. And we got invited to EO Orange County to actually be members. So started GSEA, got all the way up to EO, thanks to the help of EO and scaling up. So funny story for you.
That's a great story. And by the way, that's kind of how I got EO launched. You know, we started as the Association of Collegiate Entrepreneurs. So it was a bunch of college entrepreneur organizations. I was at Wichita State University. But I wanted the real entrepreneurs, and you had to be at the time under 30 to come speak to the students. So I put together this thing called the ACE 100, who are the top 100 young entrepreneurs under the age of 30. This will be a fun kind of trivia question. So I released the list for the first time in 1985 for 1984. We did it then again in 86 for 85. Who was the number one young entrepreneur under the age of 30 in 1985?
I couldn't tell you. I could take a guess.
Well, so in the list was Michael Dell. We had in the top 10 were Michael Dell, Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs. They were all under 30. And Mark Hughes was in there with Herbalife and a few others. So who was ahead? They were both same age, 29, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. Who had the bigger company?
I want to say Michael
I
Dell.
would guess Gates.
And what do you think was the difference in magnitude between Apple and Microsoft?
I think it's
Again, they're both 29.
pretty big. It's probably pretty big because I know
10x.
Microsoft
10x
started when he was like 21.
Yeah, so here's the crazy numbers. Bill Gates came in at number 4 on the list at a paltry 256 million. Can you imagine? He's 29 years old, 256 million. Mark Hughes was in at number 2 at just under $1 billion. And literally skewing all of our numbers and our averages was Steve Jobs, same age as Bill Gates, 1.9 billion. Apple was 8 times bigger than Microsoft, which is one of the reasons why Bill Gates always had to come down to see Steve. Steve never had to go up to Seattle or Redmond to see Bill Gates. And a lot of people, I consider Steve Jobs the original young entrepreneur. And it was because of him that I launched YEO that today is EO. So just a fun fact, we kind of got him started young and all the way up through as well.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story, man. Yeah, I mean, we could go into kind of come up stories and stuff like that, but I don't think that's a good route because you were the GOAT at scaling up companies, and our audience is a lot of home service entrepreneurs, a lot of cleaning businesses. We've helped start over 1,500 cleaning businesses. So I think a good place to start is just, what have you seen as far as home service companies? Even better if you have a cleaning company example. If you don't, home service in general. What are you seeing those founders do that are really winning outside, like getting outsized returns in their business as opposed to your average home service entrepreneur?
Yeah. Well, clearly it's taking care of their people, because it seems to be the constraint is not getting business. The constraint is having the talent in order to take care of that business. We have lots of clients in the home maintenance, commercial maintenance fields, and at least for them, that's been their number one challenge, is attracting and retaining the talent that's necessary. And that's why I love what Hubert Joly, who turned around Best Buy, said at our Harvard program last year. He said, nobody even wants leadership. What they want is careship, and that there's no way that your people are going to care for your customer, care for you, and care for your company if they don't think you care for them. And so it's all the things, and I'm sure you guys got a lot of examples of what you do to take care of your people, which then endears them to you, and then they turn around and do the job that's necessary to keep your customers happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because we've actually come to this realization in the past couple months that it really is a recruiting business. Like, it really is. Can you find, the best people to get on your team, and then, like you said, care for them? And that is the product, at least in home services.
Yeah. And what I did hear from some of our home service clients, here, I just spoke at one of the major conferences in that space, is at least people are wanting to get back to work. Because I feel bad because of inflation, because of how expensive things have gotten. People are back wanting a second job and wanting to work. And so at least there's been some pressure taken off of. Now what you're competing with is, hey, why do you want to work for me versus going on your own? John DeJulius I'm with, he has a whole bunch of hair salons. And he said the thing that was most competitive is these guys that came in with a building and gave these hairstylists their own little cubicle so they feel like they could be in business on their own. So what ends up happening is some of your own people end up then competing against you because they think, why am I working for so much an hour and I'm giving the rest to the boss? Why don't I just go do it myself? And so that's what we feel is more competitively happening out there in the marketplace.
How are you seeing
So what are
people?
you guys doing about it? So how are you guys handling that?
Okay, let me just interrupt real quick to tell you about Home Service Academy. It's the company Sergio and I run. Home Service Academy is essentially a business in the box where our team will actually roll up our sleeves and help you build a house cleaning business and run it completely remotely from anywhere in the world, from dirt to however big you actually want to take it. To date, we've helped over 1,500 people start and grow their existing house cleaning businesses all across the US and Canada. It's something we've gotten very, very good at. And if you've been looking to dip your toe into entrepreneurship, whether that's to go full-time in a business, to replace an income, or just build a side hustle that produces you an extra whatever amount of money you want to make on the side, on top of your current 9-to-5, then click the link in the bio and book a call with our team. It's completely free, and at the very least, you'll see what it looks like to actually run one of these businesses, the time commitments, the amount of money it costs to actually start, and every good and bad thing that can come with running one of these. So again, if that's something you're interested in, click the link in the bio, and let's get back to the pod.
We have focused heavily on, because we do contractors instead of employees. That's our model. We do
Right.
So the legal term for this model is a referral agency. So it's a heavy marketing and sales business, but it's still recruiting.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so what we do is we just say it's really a screening game, because you're going to have to sift through 10 people before you find the one that's going to be really, really good, at least in house cleaning specifically, because anybody can go to the store and pick up cleaning supplies and be a cleaner. But do they have the experience? Are they actually someone you can trust to go in your customers' homes, because your cleaners are your product? And we found that when you do it right, you actually take the time to screen. You do the test clean. So what we do is we'll have a friend or family member say, hey, can I give you this free clean? And they say, yeah, it's a free clean. Why not? I just need you to ask them one question. How can I book again? And so when the friend or family member asks the cleaner, and to the cleaner, they think it's a real job, but you're testing if they're good or not. And so you're asking them, hey, how can I book again? They're either going to say one of two things. They're going to say, number one, here's my card. I'll do it for cheaper. Book with me.
Yeah.
Obviously, red flag. Don't use that person. Or they're going to say, call the office, call Verne's cleaning company, and they'll get you rebooked. They do that. It's a green flag. Usually, they're going to be pretty solid.
Yeah. One of the techniques my dad used in kind of a related business is he would go out, somebody would show up in their car, and he made sure that he went out and greeted them at their car. And how clean their car was the first screen of whether or not they wanted to hire him or not. Somebody who was already meticulous about, keeping the car clean is somebody that was likely going to do a good job cleaning versus, man, if they're just, throwing their fast food bags on the floor and all of that, it's probably not somebody you're looking for. And so I've learned in those businesses, figuring out 2 or 3 of those kind of screening ideas can save you a whole lot of time. And you can ask all these theoretical questions you want, but people really show you who they are. And so and look, maybe he missed some good people, but if the car was clean, then hey, that's somebody that he wanted to do business with.
Yeah, that sounds like a good test. You've got a good story in scaling up about I forget the name of the trash company. They're having troubles retaining the guys that were actually picking up the containers and putting the trash in the back of the trash can. And the way they solved it is they said, hey, if you want to get a workout in and get paid, come work at my company. I forget the name of the business. What was the name of the business?
Yeah, so that's City Bin. And that's why there's a couple of books I would recommend. And as you know, I reference 40 books in my book. I hardly have all the answers. And so it's a book called Change to Strange by Daniel Cable. And what it says is, go choose a strange workforce. And the way we say it is, the best way to recruit talent is to have a consistent fishing hole, a place that you can go to get a string of talent. So we've got somebody, again, a client that's in a related business of the ones that are listening to this podcast. He, in every one of his cities, he knows who is kind of the local labor mafia guy. He's got all the connections to that ethnic group's labor force. He knows all the families and all the kids and all of that. And because my client John has a great work environment, because nobody wants to refer somebody to a place where the employees are going to get abused and not taken well care of. That's why it comes back to taking care of them. John's got such a good reputation that kind of the labor mafia guy says, hey, I know who's looking and who's really good. Let me refer him to you. And so what is that consistent fishing hole? So for Gene, let me tell the Gene Brown story. And it might spur an idea in your listener's head. So Gene could not find anybody to work on the back of his trash truck. And if somebody did, they lasted, a good person lasted maybe 12 months. And he's like, man, if I could just get 36 months out of somebody. So he comes back after hearing Daniel Cable speak, and he says, do we have anybody in this company that actually weirdly, strangely loves this job? And they go, yeah, we've got this one weirdo, this guy, Gary Minogue, who's training to be the super welterweight kickboxing champion of the world, who loves working because, think about it, if you're working out, do you want the bins to be harder, heavier or lighter? Do you want the truck to go faster or slower? Do you want the weather to be good or bad? Man, these are Rocky Balboa moments, right, that they're looking for. And so it gave him an idea. He said there's all of these young, disaffected youth, mainly young guys, that are mad at the world, that are working out at these gymnasiums and boxing rings and things. And look, many of them are headed to the street or jail, likely, or dead. So he put up a flyer at these gymnasiums, said, hey, would you like to get paid to work out? Now, they still had to go through our top grading screening process. What we recommend is an interview process that Scott Nash uses to hire folks, stocking his shelves at Mom's Organic Market, working, bagging groceries. He takes it as serious hiring those people as you would a top executive in his organization. But anyway, if you pass through the screen, then here was Gene's deal. Gene said, look, you sign up for 36 months. And by the way, even the psychology of 36 months versus 3 years, which sounds later, which sounds longer?
3 years.
Yeah,
years.
exactly, because it's got the word year in it. So he says, if you'll commit to 36 months, which is 3 times how long he was normally able to keep somebody, he said, what I'll do is I will work out, and he worked it out with local community colleges and stuff. I'll get you trained in the profession you want to go into next. Do you want to be a plumber? Do you want to be an electrician? Do you want to be a truck driver? And he got the world to sign on. And he was able to go, Johnny, from 60 employees and Sergio to 1,600 because he solved that constraint and found a weird fishing hole that he could get consistent talent from to fuel the growth of his business.
Yeah, that is super interesting because same thing in cleaning. Turnover very high. Like it's
Yeah.
very hard to keep a cleaner for longer than a good cleaner for longer than 6 months.
Yep.
Probably. So if someone could solve that, that'd be huge for their business.
Well, and that is what happened, by the way, to Outback Steakhouse. Running a restaurant, you know, you've got servers, you've got cooks, you've got
Dishwasher.
you know, a lot of frontline labor that's having to work evenings and weekends and all of that. And what Chris Sullivan and Jim Cannon and his co-founder found is that the average tenure of a general manager was 6 months. You know, if you had a good one, you kept moving them around to cover for the bad ones. And if they were great, they would then go launch their own restaurant, right? They like, why don't I just compete with these guys? Which is what you're facing all the time in your industry. So that was the thing that Chris and Jim solved at Outback. And they were able to hold a general manager, they called him a proprietor, at the same restaurant for 5 to 10 years, where the average in the industry was 6 months. Now, I talk about it in the book, what they did uniquely with their comp plan and all that. But the point is, in industries where the standard is 6 months, and you figure out, like Gene, at least 36 months, and Outback at least 60 months, that is a huge competitive advantage in the marketplace, kind of thing. And then all your other costs go down. The other thing that we really found is critical in your space, we've got a client like you in Malaysia. And I remember going over there for the first time. And the owner, literally, Simon Lim is his name, comes in exhausted to my workshop. And I'm like, what happened, Simon? He said, the person, and this was commercial cleaning, it wasn't home cleaning. So they have to do a lot of nighttime stuff, where you guys at least get to do daytime, generally speaking. He said, my night guy just walked off the job. So I'm out doing the cleaning myself. That's what happens when you own a business like this, is you're constantly out having to do the job yourself. So long story short, what Simon did is he said, look, comp is part of the issue. So I know if I could pay my front line 15% more than market, and I could pay the shift leader, the kind of crew lead, 35% more. And then what I'm going to do is drive on productivity, measured by square meters cleaned in an 8-hour shift. And he said, if I could double it, but I'm only having to pay on average 25% more, I can get the best people, but I'll have the lowest cost per square meter. And that's what he did. And today he's the king of that business in Southeast Asia. But he was ready to quit when he walked into my workshop because he couldn't keep people. And he was having to sub in and do the jobs himself. So there's this combination of compensation and productivity that, and I think we're all excited about Elon getting his robots. That's why he's making them look like humans, so they can literally use human utensils, brooms and things like that, to do this kind of manual labor. So stay tuned. I think your industry is going to change a lot.
If they can get it down cheap enough for these business owners to buy them, I think maybe that could be a thing.
Yeah, no, I think so. And people have Rhombas. You know, they've already kind of gotten used to robots running around, vacuuming their floors and that kind of stuff. So, but I think it comes back to, and here would be something very precisely I would encourage each owner to do, whether you've got 5 employees or 50 or whatever it is, and contractors. By the way, good news that Uber and Lyft won the Supreme Court ruling in California that those drivers can remain independent contractors and not have to be W-2. I think that was a win for everyone who is using contract labor that wants to remain independent. So I think that's the great news that happened over the last week. But I really encourage business owners to take one of their employees to lunch every week. Just because they got to eat, and you've got to eat. And you just, Gary Hirschberg did this, Stonyfield Yogurt. He said, for 44 minutes, we just talked about family. We connected at a human level. And that is what Google's research found was one of the 2 most important things that drove team productivity, team effectiveness. So if our job is to get more productive, do a better job, do it faster, and so I can pay more, but I have a lower total cost, so I'm competitive in the marketplace. Google's research found one of those is that we actually like each other, that we're friendly. And most owners don't feel the need to have that kind of relationship with their people. But Gary would take one out to lunch every week. And 44 minutes, hey, how's the family? How's the kids? What's going on? And the 45th minute, he said, hey, is there anything I ought to know? And they go, no, everything's fine, Gary. And he'd like, are you sure? And they go, well, Margaret's embezzling from the company, and we found a rat hair in vat 3 or whatever the case is. And that's when you, first of all, get the truth of what's going on. People will tell you hey, I'm seeing this and that going on. And you really build a relationship with them. That 45 minutes invested every week of showing care and breaking bread is powerful.
I'm curious how you would do that with remote work, because like so many companies are remote now.
Yep.
Like, would it just be like a Google Meets, like send them over some Uber Eats or something? Is that how you?
You could absolutely do a remote lunch, but we've got clients that are nationwide, and we think it's really important that the CEO get on the road and go. That's what I do all summer. Is I'll drive 10,000 miles this summer, crisscrossing the country, staying with friends and colleagues. I was with our coaching partners face to face in Cleveland on Sunday for lunch. On Saturday, I'm staying with one of our coaching partners, and they become your champions among the other workers. Mm-hmm. They will be the ones that will let you know if something's going wrong. They'll help discipline each other. They're like, this is a good boss. You guys can't underestimate that. If they think you're a good person, that goes such a long way in fixing a lot of issues. It just can't be underestimated. So I'd rather you get on the road and go see people.
We'll have to take a road trip, Sergio.
Yeah, how far are you guys geographically? How geographically spread out are you?
We're all pretty spread out. We've got some in Arizona. I'm in Vegas. Sergio's in California. We've got some people in California, some in Arizona. There's
Utah. Then we got some like in the East Coast, Virginia. It's like, yeah, we're all over the place.
Pennsylvania, Canada. We have a Canadian.
Yeah. Well, and that's where the daily huddle is so critical. So as you guys know, one of our early clients, still a big fan, is 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Mm-hmm. And they have all kinds of home services and those kind of things. And, Brian Scudamore swears by the daily huddle. He had me on it recently. he's one of the largest franchisees now in this space. And he's got 200 people on his daily huddle for 10 minutes. But everyone's hearing the numbers. Everyone's, we're selectively reporting out what they're seeing and hearing. And Brian's got his face in front of 200 people for 10 minutes every day. And these are franchisees that he's got all over North America. So that daily huddle that we teach is really critical.
So I'm curious, for a daily huddle, we have about 20 or so full-time employees right now.
Yep.
And we do a leadership daily huddle, and then we'll do a company all hands once per month, like town hall with everybody.
Yep.
But the leadership
good.
huddle is about 6 people. So me and Sergio included and 4 others, each manager who manages their respective department. Would you recommend a full company daily huddle every day, or would you recommend just continue with the leadership huddle?
Well, we're adamant that every employee should be in some kind of a daily. So generally those 4 managers, and hey, a little side note, hey, if I'm just coaching you, Jim Clifton, who's the CEO of Gallup, they've been measuring employee engagement for 50 years. He got interviewed by Gary Hamel last year. I think it was the most important interview for business leaders so far this century. And what Jim said is they've learned 3 things when it comes to keeping employees engaged. 1, nobody wants managed. So language matters. I think at just a minimum, I'd get rid of the word manager. And maybe you use that generically. Are they called managers, your 4 people?
Yeah.
I just consider it. Just consider. But he said what number 2 people do want is they want coached. So, for instance, Jack Daly, the great sales guy that's led 10,000 different salespeople, he's precise in that nobody needs a sales manager, but they need a sales coach. And there's a book out I'd encourage you all read called The Captain Class. And what Sam Walker discovered is what determines the success of a sports team is who is the team captain. Not the players, not the budget, not the approach, but who's the team captain. It's like Maverick, Top Gun Maverick, and Tom Cruise's role in that movie. He was captain. And so you might call them team captains instead of managers. And take a look at that book. But what you want so the first thing he said is nobody wants managed. So we're saying just get rid of the word manager. That's even what Outback did. They didn't call him a store manager. They called him a proprietor. Apple doesn't call him a store manager. They call him a store leader. So I do think language matters. Number 2, he said, though, people want coached. And he said, if you're going to coach people, all you have to do is ask them one question. What are you doing today? And what's in your way of achieving it? Well, guess what, Johnny and Sergio? That's exactly the agenda for our daily huddle. What's your priority today? And what you're checking is, does that align with what I think we ought to all be working on? And then what's in your way, what's stuck, what's your constraint, is the 3rd agenda item for our daily huddle. So by you asking that question every day, 5 data points, you know a trend. You know what's in your people's way, where we need to go, where we're working on the right things. And then he said the 3rd thing he discovered is, nobody believes this, but the key to engagement is does somebody have a best friend at work? So all of those things you do to have a quarterly theme event or celebration. Hewlett-Packard, who we used to do work with 30 years ago, their Friday barbecues, people would dump out of all of the facilities and go to a barbecue. So that's why I love that you've got that monthly all hands. And if you can make that fun in a way to highlight a couple of people and connect with them. And that's why having every employee in a weekly. So what we're adamant about is every employee should be in a weekly. For frontline, it's 20 minutes. And the key question there is, what was your good news personally and professionally? That 5 minutes, we think, is the most important out of 168 hours. And it's not that your Johnny and Sergio are going to be in every one of those weeklies, but the teams you've got in those different cities, They need to have a weekly, even if it's remote, a Zoom, and sharing good news. So we just had our Monday meetings yesterday. We always open them with good news, personally and professionally, so that allows us to connect at the human level. I know that my team knows that my son just got engaged and he's getting married next June. Do you know that about your people? I know that Jean, who's my Filipino EA, her good news was the celebrations over the weekend they had for that young gold medalist who won 2 gold medals for the Philippines in gymnastics, and the fact that he's getting lifetime colonoscopies. And we just laughed so much around that as a team, Jean talking about the excitement that her country is experiencing with this young gymnast who won 2 gold medals. I know that about my Filipino EA, who, by the way, I have never met. I've never met her physically. She is really virtual and remote. So that 5 minutes of sharing good news personally and professionally takes care of the third thing that Jim Clifton found is critical for effective teams. Having the daily huddle where you're asking people, what are you up to and what's in your way of achieving it, gets to a second, how do you coach? And then first, I just get rid of the word manager. So what I would do then is I'd still have you have a daily. Then those 4 team leads, they should go back and have a daily with their team. And that way, everybody is in some kind of a daily. That's how I do it very precisely.
Yeah.
Sorry, long answer, but
No,
the details
great.
are
That's really
very
good.
important.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, that's about how we have it. We have like marketing, sales, and then fulfillment. They have their own, and then we have our leadership one. So
Oh, well, then everybody is in a daily.
yeah,
Sorry, I
they're
meant
just an hour long. They're not like it's not a huddle. It's just a daily meeting.
yeah. It's for like it's kind of like what you said, with like for coaching. Like they'll do call reviews and they'll talk about like how to do their job the best that they can. So
All right. But your daily's not an hour, is it?
no, ours for the leadership. No, that's like 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It should be 15 minutes, and then, nobody should be in one longer than about 15 minutes, or nobody's going to do this for very long.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, daily huddles are a game changer. And even when we rolled out mission, vision, values to, I think we were maybe at 8 or 9 at the time, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And it just changed the game for us as soon as we laid out what our mission, vision, values were. And it just got everybody so bought in. It was really cool. But even when I was going through, when we were in EOA, we were maybe doing 200K in sales. After the first year, we went from 42 a year in our window cleaning business. We were full-time college students.
Yeah.
Next year we did 200, and we would go through scaling up, and we wouldn't man, this stuff is like, I don't know if we should be applying this right now. And so my question to you is, now that we have a big team and we're growing, a lot of this stuff is just changes the game for us. But back then it wasn't really hitting as much. So when would you recommend somebody, at what kind of range would you recommend somebody start to think about implementing scaling up?
Yeah. Well, it's one of the reasons why, guys, I messed up. My original book, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, was so much thinner, so much easier to read. That's why this scaling up is called Rockefeller Habits 2.0. And I ended up dissing my own book when it was really the better book to start with. So what I did, April of this year, I updated and brought it to 2024, numbers, stories, and the like. And it's a very thin book called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits 22nd edition. That's the one that we're encouraging everybody to start with. And you can start with that as a startup because it's 10x easier than scaling up. So Mastering the Rockefeller Habits is where I would have people start. And we do encourage you to try to get all your employees to read something, 2/3 of them. It's so much easier for everybody to read.
Okay, done. Gonna definitely get on that. Awesome.
And we do. I mean, we have a box of books of 20 books that is even half what they cost on Amazon. So guys get them by the box. and there's 20 to a box, 18 or 20 to a box or something like that. And they pass them out, and then they'll let's just do a chapter a month together as a team, even if it's a startup team. So,
No, smart. I like it.
So I have a question, and it's a little bit off topic of what we've been talking about.
yeah.
But I noticed you just mentioned so many different books and so many different people that you know, and it just seems like you're the most connected guy in the entrepreneurship space.
Yeah.
And I saw this clip of you talking about you talking to Regis McKenna. He was like a marketing guy for Apple. And you had this list of people you wanted to connect with, and they were going to help you scale EO. And so one of the people was Ronald Reagan. And this is just like a crazy story. Like, I just want to know how that happened. And then also, just for like the people listening, how do you get your name out there and get connected with all these different people in the space?
Yeah. Good. Well, hey, thank you. It's a great question. First, the key is to start local. Everyone, even Airbnb tried to be national day one, and they failed for like 6 years. Finally, Paul Graham said, hey, where are your best customers? They're like everywhere. He goes, no. Right now, where do you have the most customers? They started in Silicon Valley. He said, well, we have 20 customers. They've been at it for 6 years. They had 20 customers in New York City. So Paul said, guess what, guys? Pack your bags. You're going to go move in with those customers and figure out why this business isn't working. And they stayed in New York till they got to 200. So what does that mean? You're going to start a home services business. What Regis McKenna taught me and Intel and Genentech and Steve Jobs is you take a piece of paper out and you say, all right, who are the most influential people? Like even if you look at a neighborhood, who is the person who heads up the homeowners association, right? You can find that out. You know, that's information online. There's a homeowners association for that neighborhood. Who's the president of the homeowners association? And guess what? I'd come knocking. And because usually, so for instance, I'll be very precise. I'm going to Lewiston, Michigan, my buddy John Anderson's home tomorrow. It's a small town up in northern Michigan. But on the lake that he lives, everybody knows that there's the guy who all neighbors go to when they're like, hey, who do you have clean your windows? Literally, John Anderson needed his windows cleaned. So he said, everybody in the neighborhood goes to this one guy and says, who should I get to do my plumbing? I got a electrical issue. And John did. Who's everyone go to get his electrical done? There's always this person in every neighborhood and in every community. You need to consciously figure out who that is. And by the way, you can do it if you just happen to ask John Anderson, hey, who's the go-to guy in the neighborhood? Everybody asks where they get their home services. John's going to tell you it's that guy across the lake. Then that's who you want to take to lunch. Or that's who you want to bump into, or who you want to find a way to meet, and who you literally, hey, I don't think it's a problem. Find out where they live, and just watch their car and see which restaurant they go to for breakfast, and then go meet them. It's hand-to-hand combat, right? And so what Regis McKenna taught Steve Jobs is he asked him a question Bill Gates considered the best question he'd ever been asked, and it's the question he asked me. Who are the 25 most influential people that you need to get to support your vision? And my vision was to build the world's largest entrepreneur organization, which it is today. And so he said, the bigger the names, the faster you'll scale. So the first name, I'm stupid. I'm a kid. I'm a student at Wichita State like you guys were when you launched. I wrote down President Ronald Reagan. I said, you know what? I'm going to get the president to be the first in the world, of any leader in the world, to use the word entrepreneurship. And I did, and got invited to the White House. Then I wrote down Steve Jobs. Then I wrote down Michael Dell. Then I wrote down Inc. magazine and Venture magazine, and 20 more names. And then all I did was spend an hour every week figuring out how I was going to get to that person Now, President Ronald Reagan's not going to take a phone call from some student at Wichita State University. But I found through my network in Wichita somebody who could get to President Reagan. And I mean, you literally are only 2 or 3 phone calls away from anybody. And again, I'm a nobody. I'm a nobody student at Wichita State University. But it's a longer story, and I had to do the same. Steve Jobs isn't going to take my phone call. But I found out that his head of PR was Daniel Lewin. And Regis McKenna was a consultant to Steve. And I was able to triangulate in, and I got to host the very first public speech Steve Jobs ever gave after being fired from Apple. That's crazy. And anyway, 36 months we were global. The Association of Collegiate Entrepreneurs went from an idea in 1983 to global in 1986, just by making the list and working it. Now, let me be more precise. So what you really want to do in a community is find what they call the connector. Who's the person who knows everybody? And you find them through Rotary. So, man, if I have a home cleaning service business, first thing I'm going to do, are you guys members of Rotary? Are you members of the Chamber of Commerce?
I've been to Rotary. We were members of the Chamber in Orange County. I'm in Vegas now. But all that stuff, yeah.
That's the key. There's like just 4 or 5 organizations, and you always find out what is the most influential charity. So in Washington, D.C., when I first started as a coach and consultant, it was Ted Leonsis and his good buddies, his fundraiser. And then all you do is you go there. And what's interesting is that fundraisers, people let their guard down. They're more relaxed. They're in a giving mood. And you strike up conversations. And they're like, what do you do? Hey, I've got a glass cleaning business. I've got a window cleaning business. Oh my gosh. John was having this problem. He's hosting a big event for all of us this Friday. And he's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's like, oh my gosh, I've got a 3-story home. Who am I going to get to come clean the windows? And what do? You call around to your connector friends. Hey, all right, who do you use? They knew the guy in the neighborhood in Grand Rapids, not just Lewiston. And that's where they got their recommendation. So pick the organizations where the connectors hang out, and then you need to hang out at those places. And then let me give you, let's say you're shy, and I'm very shy. I'm very introverted. Let me share with you the most magical question, and then we can wrap up, I ever learned as a parent, because I assume we got some people with kids listening to this podcast. Definitely. And I learned as a leader. And so I'll finish with a couple of stories. So I have 4 children, 3 sons and a princess. And my daughter's music theater in St. Louis at Webster. She lands a major opportunity. It's a Netflix pilot, So I fly into St. Louis to take her to dinner. Now, the old dad would say, sweetheart, congratulations, this is amazing. And then I would say the stupidest 2 words any leader or any parent could ever say. And that is, and I know you did it through a lot of hard work, perseverance, dedicated to your craft, blah, 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 blah. And look, my daughter wouldn't roll her eyes, but inside she's rolling her eyes like, Dad, you're clueless. You live 3,000 miles away from me in Barcelona. You don't have a clue. By the way, we do the same thing with our employees. We'll have our monthly meeting and we'll say, hey, team, we said we're going to do this. We did this. And then you'll say, and I know we did it through a lot of hard work and teamwork and perseverance. And they're rolling their eyes like your daughter is. And so what you do instead is you use this question. And then I'll show you how you use it at the Rotary Club. You go, sweetheart, congratulations. This is amazing. How did you do it? Or some version of that. How did you pull it off? And then all I did was, she said, well, first thing at Dad, I was at this restaurant and I overheard this lady. She was in from LA. By the way, my daughter knew the restaurant that she hangs out at where everybody in that industry has lunch. So she knows to go there. She overhears this lady from LA in doing a Netflix pilot. And she just boldly goes over there and introduces herself. I stopped her right then. Sweetheart, how did you have the courage? What did you say to yourself to give you the courage to go over there and do that? All I did for the next 19 minutes was ask some version of, and how did you do that? And then how did you figure that out? And then what did you do next? And she got to talk about her favorite topic, herself. So, and remember, that's what Jim Collins meant by be interested, not interesting. You're not trying to show off yourself. You're trying to be interested in them, not interesting to them. So, last story. I'm down in Sydney, Australia, earlier this year in February, and one of our clients was hosting a big dinner. I'm the guest of honor, and she sits me next to this guy who's super well known and famous, multi-billionaire in Australia. And look, I'm like, what am I going to talk to this guy about, right? I get intimidated like everybody else does. So what do you think I did? First thing you do is you can quickly Google, or I asked Naomi, hey, any good news? Yeah, he just completed a major acquisition. That's all I needed to know. I sit down with him, I introduced myself, and I said, hey, by the way, Mr. So-and-so, I heard you pulled off an amazing acquisition. What's my question?
How'd you do it?
How'd you do it?
How did you do it? And for the next 19 minutes, I used some version of that question. And then how did you do that? And how did you get the financing? And then what did you say? What closed the deal? Tell me exactly the sentence you used. By the way, I learn a lot this way. And at the end of it, two things. First, you would have thought we were best buds, that we were BFFs forever. And it was 19 minutes because I let him talk about himself. And then you know what they always say at the end? You know what? I don't know anything about you. And that's the way it should be. And so all you want to do is if you show up at one of these events, a fundraiser, a Rotary event, a chamber event, and you're sitting at a table, you just ask enough questions to find out something good that's happened, and then go with this, how did you do it? And that's what will, and then at some point they'll say, oh, by the way, I haven't learned anything about you. What do you do? Oh, I'm in the window cleaning business. And because you've built rapport, that's who they want to do business with. Well, hey, I need that done. Give me your card. And by the way, that's the other rule. You never have business cards. You want to collect business cards. You don't want to give out business cards. Because you can give a business card, but you didn't get their contact information.
Right.
So I don't have any business cards. Now, my book is my business card. So I like giving that because people don't throw that away. But I collect business cards because then it's my job to follow up. And I now have their email address and their phone. Hey, just want to follow up. Great to meet you. Say a little bit about what I learned. Hey, I really loved that story about how you landed that acquisition and what you said to close the deal. That way they've recognized. And then you can say, hey, and you seemed interested in window cleaning. I'm here if you need it. The last thing I would do, and you'd be amazed at how often people show up, use Google Alerts. And if you don't know what a Google Alert is, Google Alert. And what I do is I have all the people I think are the influencers in my industry, I have their names in Google Alert, including my own and my own company name. And that way Google tells me if they popped into the news. And I have a reason now to reach out to them. It's doctors, it's lawyers, the kind of clients that you want to work with, professionals, they're in the news. They're popping on Instagram. And Google Alerts lets me know. Google Alerts let me know this morning I was mentioned in an article. I then make a point to reach out and thank that person for doing that. And that builds a relationship. So it is a relationship business, both with people and with customers.
That was great advice. That was great advice, Verne. I think it's a good place to wrap it up. Thank
sure.
you so much for your time and coming on the show. This was awesome. Specifically even for us too, just with the whole GSEA to EOA, EO.
Yeah.
Full circle moment for me.
Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely.
All right.
If someone
Well, congratulations, guys. Not too many companies, as you've seen the numbers. Less than 6% of companies get to your size, and you're even bigger than that. You're getting close to the 1%, 1%ers.
That's
Yeah,
the
I mean, hey man, BHAG, 100 million. We'll be
All
there
right.
soon.
Yep.
And we'll let
There's
you
only
know when we did it.
17,000 of those companies. You guys out of 32 million. So that'll be rare.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal.
All right.
If somebody wants to get in touch, what's the best way to do so?
Scalingup.com. So it's the name of the book.com. And we have a whole bunch of resources up there. We have free chapters from the book. We have a free 1-hour mini course that's 15 minutes each for people, strategy, execution, cash. And it's not a sales tool. It's a legit 15 minutes of training in each of those 4 areas. We have our growth tools, which people can download in 28 different languages. So lots of free resources up there that people can take advantage of.
Awesome. We'll put that in the link down below. Verne, thanks so
All right.
much for coming on.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for getting this information out to your world.
Thank you.